Hi guys, we are in New Answers book, lesson number 19, and we're going to start on page 245. It says, critics of biblical creation sometimes use distant starlight as an argument against a young universe. The argument goes something like this. 1. There are galaxies that are so far away it would take light from their stars billions of years to get from there to here. 2. We can see these galaxies, so their starlight has already arrived here. And 3. The universe must be at least billions of years old, much older than the 6,000 or so years indicated in the Bible. Today we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And just remember, not a scientist, so we're going to cover this the best we can, okay? Cosmic distances is the distance starlight. Okay, so we're going to talk about cosmic distances, and distant starlight has caused some to question cosmic distances, okay? There's techniques that astronomers use to measure cosmic distances and are generally logical and scientifically sound. They do not use evolutionary assumptions about the past, which is a good thing. They're part of observational science and not other forms of science that can be questioned. They are testable and repeatable in the present. So those are all good things. Some propose God created stars with beams already on the way to Earth, but that's not supported in the Bible, okay? The answer to distant starlight lies in some of the unstated assumptions that secular astronomers make, okay? And some of the assumptions that of light travel time arguments, and we're going to talk about some of these. The constancy of the speed of light. The assumption that the speed of light is constant with time. They're charging that the speed of light would cause the changing of the speed of light would cause other issues though, okay? The assumption of the constancy of the speed of light is probably pretty reasonable. It's currently being studied and researched. So, there's not necessarily a problem with saying that the speed of light is constant, but they are looking into it. There's another assumption of the rigidity of time, meaning time does not change. Einstein discovered that the rate at which time passes is affected by motion and gravity, okay? There's a time dilation. When an object moves very fast, close to the speed of light, its time is slowed down. Gravity also slows the passage of time. And your book talks about this gravitational well, okay? And basically they're saying that if everything is in a perfect order, it puts Earth in this kind of gravitational well that would cause some issues, okay? And so gravity slows with the passage of time. So a clock at sea level would tick slower than one on a mountain, since the clock at sea level is closer to the source of gravity. The effects of time dilation have been measured with atomic clocks. So suppose that our solar system is located near the center of a finite distribution of galaxies. Although this cannot be proven for certain at present, it is fully consistent with the evidence, so it is a reasonable possibility. In that case, the Earth would be in a gravitational well. This term means that it would require energy to pull something away from our position into deeper space. In this gravitational well, we would not feel any extra gravity. Nonetheless, time would flow more slowly on Earth or anywhere in our solar system than in other places of the universe. And so that's one hypothesis, you might call it, that they're continuing to study about the assumption of the rigidity of time, okay? There's also the assumption of synchronization, which is relatively has shown that synchronization is not absolute. So think about flying on a plane, okay? You have local time and universal time. I, years ago, lived in Okinawa, Japan, and when I would fly back to the States, well, first, I flew to Okinawa, Japan, I would lose a whole day. It was a 14-and-a-half-hour flight. We would leave at, 1 o'clock in the morning and get there roughly about 1 o'clock the next day. We would lose time. However, when I flew home back to the States, I would leave about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I'd get here at noon the same day. So I would lose a whole hour of the day. Now that's based on local time versus universal time. And that's what the assumptions of synchronization are kind of talking about. So keep that example in mind, or, you may have done something similar going from, just central time to Eastern time or back and forth, things like that. As you travel, you could lose or gain an hour. But there's a cosmic equivalent to local and universal time, okay? On page 250 of your books, it says this. Let's see. It says, according to Einstein's relativity, light does not experience the passage of time, so the trip would be instantaneous. Now, this idea may or may not be the reason that distant starlight is able to reach Earth within biblical timescale, but so far, no one has been able to prove that the Bible does not use cosmic local time. So, it's just throwing out other hypotheses. Since they can't prove that the Earth is billions of years old, we don't necessarily have to prove that it's not either. And so these are just kind of examples of how their assumptions may be wrong. There's also this assumption of naturalism, okay? Naturalism is the belief that nature is all there is. There's no God, there's no higher being, it's just nature, and nature's going to do its thing. Proponents of naturalism assume that all phenomena can be explained in terms of natural laws. The Bible, however, makes it very clear that God is not bound by natural laws, right? That God sustains the universe in a different way than how he created it. However, the naturalists erroneously assume that the universe was created by the same processes by which it operates today. We cannot assume the past acts of God are necessarily understandable in terms of scientific mechanism, because science can only probe the way in which God sustains the universe today. It is irrational to argue that a supernatural act cannot be true on the basis that it cannot be explained by natural processes observed today. Lastly, it says, but if no natural mechanism is apparent, this cannot be used as evidence against supernatural creation, right? You can't prove it's supernatural, so you can't have it supernatural. That's kind of the whole point of a supernatural thing, correct? Also, evolutionists have a problem with their own light travel ideas, okay? The biggest one is called the horizon problem. If you look at page 251 and 252 in your book, and I'm going to read it again because it hopefully makes it clearer than I might be able to tell you. But it says, in the Big Bang model, the universe begins in an infinitely small state called a singularity, which then rapidly expands. According to the Big Bang model, when the universe is still very small, it would develop different temperatures in different locations. Let's suppose that point A is hot and point B is cold. Today, the universe has expanded and points A and B are now widely separated. However, the universe has an extremely uniform temperature at great distance, beyond the farthest known galaxies. In other words, point A and B have almost exactly the same temperature today. We know this because electromagnetic radiation coming from all directions in space in the form of microwaves. This is called the cosmic microwave background. The frequency of radiation have a characteristic temperature of 2.7 Kelvin and are extremely uniform in all directions. The temperature deviates by only 1 part in 10 to the 5th power. The problem is this, okay? How did points A and B come to be the same temperature? They can do this only by exchanging energy. This happens in many systems. Consider an ice cube placed in hot coffee. The ice heats up and the coffee cools down by exchanging energy. Likewise, point A can give energy to point B in the form of electromagnetic radiation, which is the fastest way to transfer energy since nothing can travel faster than light. However, using the Big Bang supporters' own assumptions, including uniformitarianism and naturalism, there has not been enough time in the 14 billion years to get light from A to B because they're too far apart. This is a light travel problem, and a very serious one. After all, A and B have almost exactly the same temperature today, and so must have exchanged light multiple times. And so by their own theories, it's a problem. You also have what's called the inflation model. And what this says is there was a normal expansion or exchange of energy among A and B. And then for an unknown reason and an unknown amount of time in an unknown area, there was an inflation where A and B were pushed apart to enormous distances, and that's what caused this transfer. Because they were close for a little while, and they transferred all this, and then mysteriously they just flew apart. Again, a little questionable to me. So let's just kind of, hopefully I didn't confuse you too much. You need to make sure you're reading this book right here, right? And as you answer the questions, different things, make sure you're reading the material. So let's finish up by saying this. The critic may suggest that the Big Bang is a better explanation of origins than the Bible, since biblical creation has a light travel problem, the distant starlight we talked about. But such an argument is not rational, since the Big Bang has a light travel problem of its own. If both models had the same problem in essence, then that problem cannot be used to support one model over the other. Therefore, distant starlight cannot be used to dismiss the Bible in favor of the Big Bang. When we consider all of the above, we see that distant starlight has never been a legitimate argument against the biblical timescale of a few thousand years. Thanks.